What's up everyone, I'm Nick. This is Swiftful Thinking, where we cover all things Swift and SwiftUI related. And we're about halfway through our course now of building this cryptocurrency app. And one of the big features that I mentioned that we're going to have is the ability for users to actually input what coins they're holding so they can create their own portfolio. Obviously, we haven't added any of that logic yet, but in this video, we're going to create a new screen that's going to pop up so that the users can actually start to add and edit to their portfolio.
Alright guys, welcome back. I'm back in our Xcode project and I'm on the home view here. I'm going to press play on the live preview, and so far our app, we now have our statistics set up that are downloading from the internet, as well as all the coins in our app. But if we click the right arrow, we don't have our current portfolio, the portfolio for the current user yet. And in order to actually add the coins to the current user's portfolio, we need to set up a view, some UI, so the user can actually add their coins. And we're going to do that when the user in our app goes to the portfolio tab and then clicks the plus button up here. It's going to pop up a new sheet, and in that sheet we're going to be able to edit our portfolio. So in this video we're going to create that segue and then update that sheet. So although that view is actually going to be its own screen, its own view, the data that we're going to use for that view is tied in with the data that's on the home view, because we're going to reuse the data that's on this main screen. So because of that, I'm going to actually reuse the same home view model and incorporate it into our next screen. And since it's kind of like an extension of the home screen, I'm going to include this new view within our home folder here. So on the views inside the home folder, let's right click, create a new file. It's going to be a SwiftUI view, and let's call this PortfolioView. Click create. Click resume on the canvas to make sure we're all connected here. Let's just first change the text here to PortfolioView. And let's connect this into our app real quick before we actually create this view. So going back to the home view, I'm going to find this button here. So that button is in the home header. And inside the home header, we have the circle button view. Depending on whether or not we're showing the portfolio, it says a plus sign or the info. So if it says the plus sign, we want to show this new sheet. So up here, I'm going to add .ontap gesture. We'll say if show portfolio, and then we need something to toggle to show that sheet. So at the top of our screen here, underneath the show portfolio, we're going to create an @state private var. This one will be show portfolio view of type bool, and we'll set it equal to false. And I'm just going to put a comment here because these are very similar wording. So this is animate right. So like when you click the button, it animates to the right. And this is going to be a new sheet. So when we toggle this, we actually want to show a sheet. So I can really put this sheet anywhere inside this view. I'm just going to put it on this background layer here. So we'll call .sheet. We'll use the isPresented and content. IsPresented is going to be binding to the show portfolio view. The content we're going to show is, of course, the portfolio view that we just created. Back down in our button, when it is the show portfolio, let's call show portfolio view .toggle. So if I click resume on the canvas here, we should now be able to segue to this sheet. Let's go to the portfolio view and then click the plus, and a sheet should pop up from the bottom. So this is working, but two things I want to note here. When we are using these sheets, this is actually creating a new environment. So right now our home view has that environment object, but when we go to this new sheet here, this portfolio view, because this is a new sheet, it's a total new environment. So if we want this environment object in our portfolio view, we also need to manually add it into the environment of the portfolio view. So here I'm just going to call .environment object, and I'm going to add the VM from our home view into the environment of the portfolio view. And also when we go into that portfolio view, because we're going to a new environment, we are no longer inside the original navigation view. So if I tried to add like a navigation title here, it's not going to work because we're not in a navigation view yet. So we manually have to add another one in this view. Let's go to the portfolio view here, and let's add in a new navigation view. Open the brackets. Inside the navigation view, we'll add a scroll view. Inside the scroll view, we'll add a V-stack. I'm going to give an alignment of leading and spacing of 0. Open the brackets. In here, I'm just going to put a text that says hi for a second, just to get the error to go away. And at the bottom of the navigation view, let's add a navigation title. And the title for this portfolio view is just going to be Edit Portfolio. Very simple. And then I want to add an X button in the top navigation bar here. So normally, if you've been following my courses, I've been using the navigation bar items. And we can use the leading item. And in here, we can put in our button. So it's going to be an image, system name, it's going to be Xmark. And it's actually going to be a button, sorry. Open the parentheses with the action and label. And we'll make the image the label. We'll give it a font of headline to make it a little bit bigger. And then in our button, we want to dismiss the sheet. And we do that by calling our environment value. We call @environment, open the parentheses, and we'll use a key path with a \presentation_mode. We'll say var presentation mode. And then in our button, we'll call presentation mode.wrappedValue.dismiss. So this is the standard way to dismiss sheets in SwiftUI. So when we click the button, it should dismiss the sheet that we are in. But this X mark is actually pretty generic, right? This is not specific to this sheet. And I want to be able to reuse this X mark on multiple screens in our app. So I'm going to actually make that its own component. So I'm going to copy this button. I'm going to right click on the components folder, create a new file. It's going to be a SwiftUI view, and I'm going to call it Xmark button. Click create. In here, I'm just going to paste in our button. All right, and then we just need the presentation mode in here. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to take this presentation mode that we just wrote out. I'm going to copy it, go back into our Xmark button, paste it in here. So this should work. And now we can just add this Xmark button to our code, and it will always have this presentation mode. We don't need to add this presentation mode like every screen that we want to add a back button. So let's go back into our portfolio view now, and instead of this button here, we can just add a Xmark button. And we actually don't even need to put the presentation mode in this view. So we have our nice and handy Xmark button. And one other thing I want to point out quick is that if I hold the option button and click on this navigation bar items, and I go down and click on open in developer documentation, we can actually see that this navigation bar items has actually been deprecated as of iOS 14.3. So I've been using this in like my bootcamp courses because that's what, that was the most updated thing to use. But as of iOS 14.3, Apple actually wants us to use the toolbar instead. And essentially it's going to do the same thing. The toolbar is a little more dynamic when we're using like different devices. So we're going to use a toolbar with content, and we're going to put it in the navigation bar leading placement. So going back into our code, instead of navigation bar items, we're going to call .toolbar. And then in here, we can add some content, and the content is going to be a toolbar item. Open the parentheses, and we have placement and content. The placement will be navigation bar leading, like we just saw, and the content is going to be an Xmark button. I can then get rid of our navigation bar items here, and we are using the toolbar instead. All right, it should still be showing here. All right, and let's just make sure that that back button works. So I'm going to go into my home view quick. On the home view, let's press the arrow. Let's pop up that sheet and let's click on the X button, and it dismisses and we know it's working, right? And in our app, users can actually swipe down the sheet if they want instead. That works just as well, but now we have the X mark also working. Let's jump into the portfolio view. Let's start building out this screen. All right, so at the top of this VStack, we're going to actually add a search bar so users can type in the coin that they want to add to their portfolio. So we're going to reuse the search bar that we created a couple videos back. Open the parentheses. And we need to bind it to some search text. And we're going to actually reuse the search text that's already in our view model. So if you remember, we added the view model a couple minutes ago specifically to the portfolio view environment. So we can now pull it from the environment. We'll call @environment object. We'll say private var, we'll call it VM, and it'll be of type home view model. Let's add it to our preview here. So our preview will add the .environment object. We'll add the dev.homevm. And then in our search bar view, we're going to bind to the search text that's inside the view model. So we'll say $VM.search text. Let's click try again, and we should get that search bar now on the screen. And below this, let's create a scroll view. Let's open the parentheses and use the .horizontal here. Shows indicators, we'll do true. Maybe we might change that in a second. And then for the content inside the scroll view, we're going to add a lazy H stack. And we're doing lazy because there's going to be a lot of items potentially in this, and we don't want to load them all at once. So we'll make it lazy. We'll give it spacing of 10. We'll open the brackets. And then the items that we want to show, we're going to do for each, open the parentheses. We use the data completion here, and we're going to loop on the same data array that we already have in our view model that we're showing on the home screen. So we're going to say vm.allCoins. This will be for each coin here. And then for each coin, we want to show maybe the coin name and the image. But for right now, let's just add maybe a text with the coin.symbol.uppercase. Just to make sure it is all connected and working. So if I click play here, we should see the coin list coming through. Awesome. And I want to make this a custom view for this screen that has maybe like the symbol, the image, as well as the name of the coin. And because we're going to reuse it a bunch of times, I'm going to make it its own component. And because it's got the coin image in it, we're going to use the coin image folder that we made before. So in the coin image folder, let's right click, let's create a new file. Let's create a SwiftUI view quick. Let's call this coin logo view. Click create. I'm not sure if that's the best name, but it works. Let's click resume on the canvas, make sure we're still connected. And into our coin logo view, we're going to pass in a coin. So we'll say let coin of type coin model. Then we're going to add a very simple VStack. Open the brackets. At the top, we're going to add a coin image view. We made this a bunch of videos back. We're going to pass in our coin, and that should now download a coin. That should now download the image for a coin for us. So in our preview here, let's add the dev.coin. And hopefully when we resume this, we can now see that coin. And that's why we made that coin image view its own component, because now we can reuse this in our code, and we don't even have to worry about any of the logic for downloading this coin or setting up how to download this coin. We just add this one little piece of code, and now we can get this coin wherever we want, whenever we want, and it's awesome. Let's set the frame of this to be a width of 50, a height of 50, and we don't need the alignment. Below this, let's add a text with the coin.symbol. And let's make it .uppercased. Let's give this a font of headline and a foreground color of color.theme.accent color. I want to give it a line limit of 1 so that it always stays on one line, even if it's a really long symbol, even if it's a lot of characters, it stays on one line. And if it is a lot of characters and it's going to exceed the space, let's give it a minimum scale factor of 0.5 so that the text downsizes a little bit to fit on one line. Let's also add another text with the coin.name, and let's give this one a font of caption a foreground color of color.theme.secondary text, so it's gray. Let's also give this a line limit of, let's give it a 2 line limit, and let's give it a minimum scale factor of 0.5. Finally, if there is multiple lines, because we're doing 2 lines here, let's add a multi-line text alignment of center, just in case. All right, on the preview, let's give it a .preview layout of size that fits, and let's just make a group down here. Open the brackets. We're going to cut this. Let's paste it twice in here. And on the second one, let's call .preferred color scheme of dark, just so that we can see how it looks in the dark and the light mode, which I think it looks good. Let's jump back into our portfolio view. And for each of these coins, let's actually instead add a coin logo view. Open the parentheses, pass in our coin, and we now get this awesome list, and we can scroll on it, which looks good. Let's actually make each of these a little bit bigger just in case. So let's give the logo view a frame with a width of maybe 75. Let's click resume on the canvas here. Let's reload the preview. And I think that looks a little bit better, a little more spacing between each of them. I actually don't like that this indicator is here, so let's turn it to false. Looking good, looking good. All right, now I want to be able to select one of the coins from this list. So if we click it, we need some indicator that it is selected. So on this coin logo view, let's give it a .background. And let's do a rounded rectangle with maybe a corner radius of 10. And this rectangle, let's actually just give it a stroke with a, where is it? With a line, with color and line width. So I'm looking for this one that has actually content and line width here. So it starts out as blue and line width of 1. This is what it looks like. So let's make it look a little bit better. We're going to give it some, let's add some padding around the frame before we add the background. So we'll do padding, maybe like 4. So it's a little bit of extra padding. And we're going to make the color color.theme.green. It'll be the green from my theme. And I want to add a little bit of padding actually around the entire lazy H stack here. So let's just add a padding. Let's do .vertical, maybe 4. I think that looks a little bit better. Let's also add some padding so it lines up with this on the left here. So we'll add .padding .leading. Looks good. And then we're going to add a little bit of logic for selecting a coin. So at the top here, and I could put this logic into a view model. We've done a lot of work with view models in this course, and I don't want to make it like overly complicated. I know I've already made it pretty complicated as it is. So let's just put some logic into this view here. So we're going to create an @state private var, and we'll call this selected coin of type coin model. And we'll make it optional in case we don't have one, and we'll start it out as nil. And then on our coin logo view, before we add the background, let's call .onTapGesture. And I'm going to perform an action with animation. And it will be maybe .easeIn, open the brackets. And when we tap on a coin, we're going to set the selected coin equal to the coin we tapped on. All right. And then finally, we're going to change the stroke color. So the green color here, we're going to only make it green if it is the selected coin. So down here on the stroke color, let's change this to selected coin.id is equal to the coin.id, question mark. And if it is, we'll do color.green. Otherwise, we're going to do color.clear. Let me try to make that a little bit on one line so you guys can see it. All right, so if the selected coin, if the ID of the selected coin is equal to the ID of the coin that we're looping on in this loop right now, we're going to make it a green color. So let's click resume. It should start out with no green highlights. When I click on one, it should now animate to look like it is selected. I think that looks pretty cool. So now we are selecting the different coins. And if we do select one, I want to add some a bit of a view down here so that we can actually add how many coins, how many of these coins that we actually have in our portfolio, so that we can then finally save it to our portfolio. Before we do that though, let's clean up this view a little bit, this portfolio view. So let's actually copy this entire scroll view here. I'm going to copy the scroll view all the way through the padding to the closing of the scroll view. Let's go down to the bottom. Let's create an extension for the portfolio view. Open the brackets. We'll create a private var. We'll call this coin logo list of type some view. Open the brackets and we'll paste that code inside. And now back up in the top here, let's just delete this scroll view and instead reference the coin logo list. Just to make the body a little bit more readable, let's click resume, make sure we are still connected. Cool. All right, so if we do select a coin, we want to show some extra data down here. So we're going to say if selected coin is not equal to nil, open the brackets. And here we're going to add a VStack with spacing of 20, open the brackets. And inside here first, let's add maybe an HStack, open the brackets. Let's add a text here that has maybe the current price of, let's use the backslash open close parentheses, and let's access the selected coin dot symbol dot uppercased. And if we can't get it, let's just do 2 question marks and make it a blank string. So if I click on one, it should say the current price of, let's add a colon after it too. So current price of ETH colon. Let's add a spacer. And then on the right side, we're going to add another text. And here we're going to add the selected coin dot price, the current price. And we want to change it into a number, so we're going to call dot as currency with 6 decimals. And it is optional, so we'll do 2 question marks and make it a blank string if we can't get it. So let's click it, current price of ETH, and we have the value here. If I change coins, we can see that it is updating exactly what we are expecting. Below this HStack, let's add a divider. Let's add another HStack. I'm going to say text. We're going to say amount in your portfolio, colon. We'll add a spacer. And then here we're going to add a text field, because this way the user can actually type in how many coins they have in their portfolio. Let's give it a title here, which is actually the placeholder. We're going to say maybe EX 1.4 as like an example of what to type in here. And we need to bind this to a string. So at the top here, we'll say at state private var quantity text of type string, and we'll set it equal to a blank string. We're going to bind to it with the money sign quantity text. So let's reload the canvas quick, and when we click on one, we should now see the amount in your portfolio, EX with an example, and if we click it, we can then type how many coins we have in our portfolio. On this text field, I want to actually align the text to the right side. So let's add a dot multi-line text alignment of trailing. So if I click on one now, the text is all the way on the right side. And lastly, I want to make sure users can only enter numbers in this text. I don't want anyone to type in actual like letters. So to do that, we'll just change the keyboard that's allowed when we click on this, and we will set the keyboard type to decimal pad. The decimal pad does not have any letters, it only has numbers. Then we're going to add a divider, and we're going to add one more row with an HStack open the brackets. I'm going to say text. We're going to say current value, colon. We'll add a spacer in here, and then we're going to set one more text, and then we're going to get the current value, and then we're going to get the current value of these holdings. So the current value is actually going to be the quantity times the price. So because there's some logic there, I'm going to create a function just to get the current value. So scrolling down, I'm going to put it in our extension down here. Maybe underneath this coin list, we'll say private func get current value, open close parentheses, open the brackets. And here we're going to return a double. So first we want to get the quantity, and the quantity is actually what the user typed into this text field. But this text field actually has to be a string. Even though we know they're going to type in numbers because we added the decimal pad, it's a string still. So we first need to convert this string to a double. So down in our function, we're going to say if let quantity equals double quantity text, open the brackets. So if we can get the quantity, we're then going to return the quantity times, and then we are going to call the selected coin dot current price. And this is optional, so let's put it in parentheses, and if we can't get it, let's just say otherwise 0. If we can't get the quantity, then chances are the quantity is 0, so down here we would just return 0. Alright, now we have our function, we can use it to get the current value, so let's go back up. In this third H stack, let's call get current value, which returns us a double, and we'll call it .as currency with 2 decimal places. Let's click resume on the canvas, see what we're working with here. We have Bitcoin. The current price of Bitcoin is 59,000. The amount in our portfolio is 0, so the current value is 0. If I change the amount to 1, current value goes to 1 times 59,000, and that works perfect. If I put 0.5, it's obviously 0.5 of the current price, so this is definitely working exactly as we expected it. Alright, now let's do a little bit of formatting on this. So when we click it, it has this like weird animation that's popping up because all of these numbers are different. So let's first disable the animation on it. So on the entire H stack, let's add .animation of none. Let's also add some padding on this H stack, and let's also make it a font of headline. Hopefully that looks a little bit better. I think it does. And as I did that, I noticed that when I click this, and when I click this the first time, it has this like little tiny bit of animation there. I think it's just like a layout issue. So if I click it, right now it's going to move a little tiny bit when I click it, and I don't like that. So let's actually just update the frame of that list. So going down to the frame, let's see, we added vertical padding. Let's maybe change that. Let's just do maybe a .frame. Let's just give it a specific height of, what are we doing? Maybe 150? Let's see what that looks like. Looks a little too big. Let's do maybe 100. It looks too small. 120. I think that looks really good. Going back up, let's clean up this code a little bit. So I'm going to take this V stack here. I'm going to cut it. Let's go down to our extension. We'll add a private var. We'll call this portfolio input section of type SumView. And we'll paste in that V stack down here. And let's just put that back up in our code as the portfolio input section. Click resume. All right, this is working. We get the current price of the item that we're clicked on, so BCH, DOT, LTC. The price is clearly updating, and when we start typing the amount in our portfolio, we can set it equal to 7 here, and then the current value is updating automatically. I want to change this so that it's actually on one line. I don't like how it's on 2 lines here, so let's just change the text to maybe amount holding, the amount that you're currently holding. That looks a little bit better, just keeping these on one line. And finally, the last thing I want to do in this video is when we do change the text in here, I want to add a little save indicator at the top here so that we can actually save this to our portfolio. We're not going to do the logic for saving in this video, but I want to just add the button for saving. All right, so back up at the top here, I'm going to add another toolbar item. Open the parentheses. We're going to use the placement and content. Placement is going to be navigation bar trailing. Content, let's hit enter here. Let's create an H stack. Open the brackets. Let's give it spacing of 10. And we're going to add two different items here. We're going to first add an image with a system name of checkmark. It's just a very simple check. And then we're going to add a text that says save. And let's call that uppercased. Let's give this H stack a font of headline. And I only want to show the check mark when we do click save and it is successful. So I'm going to create another state at the top here at state var. Let's do private var. We'll say show check mark of type bool, set it equal to false. And on this check mark image, we're just going to call dot opacity. And we'll say show check mark 1.0, otherwise 0.0. All right, and then this text, we're actually going to make it a button. Open the parentheses. Let's use the action and label. And the label obviously will be our text that says save. And we only want to show this save button when we actually click on an item and we change the current holding from what it currently is. So right now ETH has 0 holdings, but as soon as we change it, we want to show the save icon. So this button I'm going to call .opacity, and we're going to say if, in parentheses, I'll put if selected coin is not equal to nil and the selected coin dot holdings or current holdings is not equal to the quantity text, which is the text that's in this field right here. And this quantity text again is a string, so we need to convert it to a double. So we'll say double quantity text. So if we are selecting a coin and the current holdings have been updated, question mark, we'll do 1.0, otherwise 0.0. Let's resume the canvas. So right now I'll click on ETH and we don't see the save icon, but as soon as I type something in here, it pops up, and that's awesome. Let's finally wrap this video up. I'm going to take this H stack here. So all this H stack, let's cut it. Let's go down to the bottom of our extension. Let's create a private var. We'll call this trailing nav bar buttons of type some view. Open the brackets, paste in our H stack. Let's take this trailing nav bar buttons, put it into our body up here. So that should be working. And then finally, let's add a quick function. We'll say private func, save button pressed. Open close parentheses, open the brackets. We're going to call this when we click on this button, when we click the save button. First, we're going to check that we do have a coin that we are selected. So we'll say guard let coin equals selected coin, else return. Then we're going to add some code to actually save to portfolio, which we haven't done that yet. We're going to do that soon. So I'm going to leave that section blank. When we click this button, we then want to show the check mark that we just set up. So we'll say with animation.ease in, open the brackets. And the first thing we want to do here is say show check mark equals true. And the second thing we're going to want to do is remove the current selected coin. So after we click save, we want to unselect this coin. So we're going to create one more function to say private func remove selected coin. Open close parentheses, open the brackets. I'm making this its own function because it's a two-step process. First, we're going to set selected coin equal to nil. And then second, if we are searching a coin here, we're going to set the vm.search text also equal to a blank string. So in here, we'll call remove selected coin. So the next thing I want to do is hide the keyboard. You guys haven't noticed this yet because we haven't ran it on a device, but when we click onto this, the keyboard pops up from the bottom, and we want to dismiss the keyboard when we click save. So we're going to use our UI application.end editing. Sorry, UI application.shared.end editing. It's a extension we set up a couple videos back to dismiss the keyboard. And then lastly, after we do click save, I want to create a 2-second delay and then just re-hide the check mark. So then down here, we're going to say hide checkmark. We'll call a dispatch queue.main.async after. We'll do now plus 2 seconds. And we're just going to say with animation.ease out, open brackets, show checkmark equals false. And I realize we're showing the checkmark and hiding the checkmark without actually confirming that we saved correctly. We're going to add the logic to save later, and this is just going to create a nice UI effect for now. So that's it for this. Video. Let's just run this quickly on a simulator and see if it works. All right, so my app is loading. I hope it all works. So my app just loaded. I hope this all works because we spent a lot of time in this video here. Let's go to the portfolio tab, and then we can click our plus icon. And in a nice new sheet, we pop up with our edit portfolio. We have our X mark button, which we can use to dismiss it. And in our edit portfolio, we can actually then, we can search by a specific coin that we want. So if I want maybe DOT, it should filter to the DOT, which is awesome. And we can also click on any of these. We can change the amount we are holding. We have the decimal keyboard popping up, which I'll put 12. And once we typed and changed the amount holding, the save button popped up here. And if I click it, we show the check mark, and then we dismiss the keyboard, and then the check mark goes away. So all we need now is some logic to actually save that into our app. The last thing I want to do before we wrap this up actually is change the color of this edit portfolio because we can actually not change the color of this text in our SwiftUI view. We have to override that for the entire app. So let's do that quickly. I'm going to jump into the SwiftUI Crypto App.swift file. So this is the first file in our entire app here. So before anything even runs in our app, let's just call our init, open close parentheses, open the brackets. And in here, we're just going to override the navigation bar titles. So we're going to call UI navigation bar dot appearance dot large title text attributes. And we can see that it is a dictionary of ns attributed string.key and any. So here we'll set it equal to, and the first key we're going to do is the dot foreground color. And the value we're going to give it actually has to be a UI color, not a Swift color. So we're going to call it UI color, and then we're going to convert a Swift color. So here we're going to pass in the color.theme.accent. I'm going to copy this and just paste it one time, and we're also going to set the appearance.title text attributes equal to this as well. To run it one final time for this video, and hopefully that overrides the foreground color of the navigation bar. So jump into our portfolio view, into our edit portfolio view, and now it is pink, which is our accent color, which is perfect. Alright guys, this was a long video. We did a lot of setup, but we created another whole screen here, and our app is really getting close to the end line here. Hope you guys are enjoying this course, and thank you for watching. As always, I'm Nick, this is Swiftful Thinking, and I'll see you in the next video.